All righty, let's see. This evening is definitely, at least of the talks I've given, the most technical lesson from Lewis, but it's also really, really good. I read The Weight of Glory and Other Addresses probably 10 years ago or so. It's this small book. It's called The Weight of Glory and Other Addresses. The Weight of Glory is the most well-known address in it, but it's full of a lot of other ones. I hope to come back to some of them later in the Lenten suppers. But the talk in particular that I'm going to draw from is called Transposition. Probably the dullest title that has ever entitled one of Lewis's works, but it is a very good work. And so, like many of his addresses found in this collection, in this essay, Lewis speaks directly in plain English on a theme that runs really throughout the rest of his works. And the more I read Lewis, the more I teach on Lewis, the more I realize how whole he is. Anything he says just bleeds into everything else he says. And so this is certainly one of those things. And in this address in particular, it contains his theology, or more probably his metaphysics. He didn't describe it this way, but his metaphysics of the heavenly country, of heaven, of the new heavens and the new earth, however you want to describe it, but his metaphysics of that realm in relation to ours. And in this essay, Lewis explains how he conceptualizes this relationship, how he wrestles with it, and as always, I find him certainly very insightful in it. And the summary of his view is captured in my title for the talk, which is Solid Joy, right? Solid Joy, and that's what I hope to show you this evening through unpacking Lewis's philosophy of heaven. The heavenly country is one of solid joys. And we saw this before, right, in the Great Divorce. Where was solidness? It was even the grass, right, was solid. It was so solid that the ghosts walking there couldn't bend a blade of grass. As Lewis thinks and conceptualizes heaven, it is more solid than earth. It is certainly more solid than hell. And so this talk plays into all that. It's more solid than anything we've ever known. To start off, I want to read a passage from one of his other essays in this, The Weight of Glory in particular. And those who haven't read it, I'm sure you've at least heard this quote before. It's pretty popular, and I know I've certainly quoted it, whether in a sermon or in a newsletter or something like that. But this is from The Weight of Glory, and it serves as a good introduction to his talk on transposition. So he says, "Indeed, if we consider the unblushing promises of reward and the staggering nature of the rewards promised in the Gospels, it would seem that our Lord finds our desires not too strong, but too weak. We are half-hearted creatures fooling about with drink and sex and ambition when infinite joy is offered us, like an ignorant child who wants to go on making mud pies in a slum because he cannot imagine what is meant by the offer of a holiday at the sea." Right? We are far too easily pleased. Right? Amen. I love that quote. But Lewis takes the promises of the gospel very seriously, right? As we should also. He takes it so seriously that he flips the gospel call, as we often think about it, on its head. Not the actual gospel call, but as we tend to think of it, he flips it on its head. The gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ, it does begin with repentance, right? It's a call to repent, absolutely, right? I preach that every Sunday. You're going to hear that all the time. It is a call to lose ourselves, but he calls us, our Lord calls us to lose ourselves because we are no better than that clueless little child that he describes, right? That child who wants to go on making mud pies in a slum because he does not know what it means that he could have a vacation by the sea, right? He can imagine what is meant by an offer of a vacation, right, in San Diego, without the liberalness of it. Our problem is not that we desire too much, right? That's not our problem. That's often how the gospel's caricatured, or Christianity. Oh, it's just Puritan. Even Puritans are caricatured as this sort of stifling presence. No, it's not that we desire too much, but rather we are too easily pleased, right? We don't desire enough. We have infinite joy offered to us, and we are content with drink and sex and ambition, right? Things that are far lesser than this infinite joy that the gospel presents us with. So This is the case, and this infinite joy that Lewis speaks of, it is a solid joy. More solid than anything we have known or now know presently, but what we will know. More solid than, again, drink and sex and ambition, more solid than meat and fame, than pleasure as we now know it. And it is this idea of the solidity, the solidness of joy that most strikes me in this essay of transposition. So we're going to turn to that now. So as I've said, this essay contains something like his metaphysics, his science of heavenly joy, of the heavenly life, and as such, it does require some unpacking, so it becomes a little bit technical, but I don't think it's too technical. He has a way of making it clear by the end, and so it can be a little bit complicated in the front, but I think by the end we'll understand it. My hope is to first unpack his concept, his conception of transposition, and then I want to read a passage out of Narnia. The two, this essay and the passage that I have in mind that I'm going to read out of the Chronicles of Narnia, they are deeply intertwined. Again, what Lewis says here, he's showcasing there. What he unpacks in transposition, he utilizes with full imaginative force in one of his books. Actually, several of his books. We're going to limit ourselves just to one of them. So that'll be the end, and you'll get to tell me how these two are related, right? How the passage is related to his talk on transposition. So pay attention, and if you can guess the book and the scene ahead of time from merely my explanation of transposition, then you get 100 points, right? I don't know what you get for those 100 points, but you get 100 points. Now I'm going to use the whiteboard for some of this. So bad. Anytime I write anything on the whiteboard, I feel so pathetic. But it'll hopefully help map out some of what I'm talking about. Okay, so the central question that concerns Lewis is how this world, right, this world of senses, how it relates to the heavenly realm. And in order to get there, he speaks, as he always does, of our common experience. Right? He speaks of our common experience of drawing, our common experience of music, of our emotional life, and also of language. His main idea is this, that the heavenly world is like a richer dimension to our own. Right? The heavenly world is like a richer dimension to our own. We are in 2D. Right? Heavenly joys are in 3D. That realm is the fulfillment, the consummation of all that is good in our realm. If you are familiar with Plato and his philosophy, well, Lewis is certainly riffing off that. Right? He is making it his own, but he is riffing off Plato, and if you know anything about Western philosophy, as one philosopher said, all of Western philosophy is just a footnote to Plato, right? So all Western philosophy, you can't really get away from Plato. He's always there, and Lewis, being a good Westerner, is rooted in him. So let's take some common examples from our own experience, as Lewis does. So to begin with, we're going to talk about music, right? Musical experience. So who here is musical? Any musically gifted people here? All right, a few. I am not one of those. I can't consider myself musical, but I like music. But we can still understand this. So what is an orchestra? What is an orchestra? Maybe it's just too simple. Yeah, it's an ensemble of instruments and instrumentalists. And what are some common instruments that we find in an orchestra? Flute, violin, cello, trumpet, maybe, right? What was it? Timpani. Whatever that is. Yeah, so you have a variety of instruments in an orchestra. Is there a number of how many instruments? It can be any number, right? For the most part, it just has to be more than 4. Can't be that it's a quartet. Anybody have a famous or have a favorite orchestral piece or famous orchestral piece? Oh, okay, yeah. What's that? Messiah, yeah. Any others? What? Okay. Pictures in a museum. Who's the composer?
Didn't anyone take music appreciation? That's the only one I actually remember.
I've never heard of it, but I haven't taken music history. So, all right. Let me take a sip. I'm getting over a cold. All right, so you guys have some in mind. Well, this is a bit of a multimedia presentation. We're not going to just talk about these, but I want to experience them together. So we're not going to listen to the whole thing. But for our musical example, I want us to listen to Beethoven's Fifth, right? Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. I got some cheers back there. Not the whole thing, but just for us to be able to get a feel for it. And we're going to hear two different versions of it, and then you get to tell me what the difference is, right? So first, there's the piano version. I'm going to try to do this. I'm going to try to share my mic. There's a piano version that the famous Hungarian pianist and composer Franz Liszt transcribed from the symphonic piece, from the symphony piece, to be a piano piece. And so let me play that for you. I'll just stop talking. I'm going to stop there, but yeah, let's pause. So what do you think, right? It's pretty beautiful. So that's the piano version, and then here is the symphonic version. Yeah, another applause. So, what is the difference? What is the feeling difference? What do you guys think? Yeah.
Orchestra is more rich and
Yeah.
it's compiled with so many different parts to it. It just builds the whole song.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Even though the piano is still beautiful.
Yeah, the piano's gorgeous, right? I think we're all moved by that. But then, man, that orchestral piece sets in and my heart starts racing and you kind of just feel another, imagine being in an orchestral hall. Just be blown away by that. But there is the symphony version is richer. And why is it richer?
All the other instruments
Yeah.
piling in, adding their own
Yes.
flair to it.
Yeah, you have different kinds of sounds. You have many sounds compounding, many different instruments. It's a fuller, more textured experience, right, than just the piano version. So again, they're both very beautiful, right? Both very stunning, the same notes overall, but when you go to the symphony version, there's just this richness, there's this fullness that the piano version hints at, right? It hints at, and then you listen to the symphony, you're like, oh, that's what that was getting at. It's still beautiful, but that's what that was getting at. So that's musical experience. Now, C.S. Lewis also draws from our emotional experience. So who has ever felt terror before? Have you felt terror? Have you ever been scared to death or just quite afraid? And what happens in your body, right? That's your emotional experience. You get terrified, and how does your body respond? You feel sick. Chill runs up your spine. You get nauseous. Maybe you even faint, right? Your body's so overwhelmed that you just pass out, right? You get that experience. Your body can't handle it. So there's those different experiences of terror. But what about who has ever been in love? Some of us all of us who are married, hopefully, right? Or felt awe, right? You're just awestruck by just some beautiful landscape or sunset or just something or even a symphony piece. You're just in awe of it. And what happens to your body at that point? Maybe you get the butterflies, get sick to your stomach, you get the chills, maybe you swoon, you faint, right? That's what we read in Song of Solomon, right? The bride says that she's lovesick, right? She also feels sick. So again, what do we see going on here? We see radically different emotions. You're not going to confuse terror with love, but your body responds kind of in the same way, right? Your body has the same choices to express those emotions. So even though the emotions themselves are leagues away, but our emotional life is richer, right? It's richer than our bodily sensations. And so our body, like the piano, it makes do, right? It makes do with what it has. The piano makes do with what it has in order to represent the trumpets and the violin and all the different pieces of the orchestra. And so also the body, its sensations double up. Right? It does double duty to try to represent our emotional life. So you're afraid, make him feel sick, right? You're in love, make him feel sick, right? You're scared, send a chill up his spine. You're in awe, we'll send a chill up his spine. You're terrified, we'll make him faint with terror. You're in love, well, again, make him faint with love. And so the body that's what it has. It has to be able to, it has to represent those emotional components of our life with, the tools, the keys that it has to work with. So you get the idea. And one more illustration, literally an illustration, a really bad one, but I drew, what is that? A cube. Is it though? And how many, who said that? But how many dimensions does the board have? Well, come on, two. Come on, go back to math. Y-axis. At least I took algebra. So it has 2 dimensions, right? The board has 2 dimensions, length and width, or length and height. But how many dimensions does a cube have, or a box? 3, right? So we make up a dimension right here, Z. So we do double duty, right? We portray that. It's an optical illusion. That is not really there. I fooled you. It's not actually a cube. It's just lines. But I represent it, right, on a lower medium by compensating. Well, now we've declared this line to be another dimension. Ooh. The 3rd dimension. So we have 3 there. But again, the space is doing double duty or triple duty in order to collapse something that is in the 3D realm to be able to represent it on a 2-dimensional surface. Again, there's a richer medium, and it moves down to a lesser medium. So we see orchestra, love and terror, and then with illustrations. We move from a richer medium, a richer world, a more solid world, to a lower world. And we could, we could probably, someone who's far more artistic than I am, could represent this chair, on that board, engineers, right? You all looking at a computer screen, right? You can, or when they used to do it on paper, they could represent, very complicated 3D objects on paper or on a screen, taking stuff from the real world, the richer world that we experience, and portraying it on a lesser medium. So like Beethoven's symphony, like the feeling of love, like a book or a box or a cube, when these objects are represented on a piano or in our bodily sensations in a whiteboard, well, what happens? They overwhelm the system. They overwhelm the system, and the system has to do double duty. It has to make up for that missing deficiency or that deficiency. So they're represented there, but not fully. Right? That cube is not fully represented there. Love, terror, they are not fully represented in our body's response. Piano, right? Beethoven's Fifth on the piano. It does not fully represent the symphony piece because something is missing, a dimension is missing. Right? 2D to 3D. The piano score, the feeling in your gut, the drawing, they are copies of their richer counterparts, only again with a dimension missing. So again, that's the technical part. This is the phenomenon, or whatever you might call it, that Lewis calls transposition. You have a symphony that is transposed onto a piano. You have love and terror, the emotional life that is transposed into bodily sensations. And you have the 3D world, which is transposed onto a whiteboard. That is transposition, and it's more complicated. Obviously, there's dynamics to the body that interact with emotional life too. So it's an example or an analogy. Anything I can clarify on that to make sure that we understand what transposition is? Is that clear? Great. Now that we have that concept and that phenomenon clear in mind, how does this concept of transposition then relate to our question about the heavenly realm? And that's what Lewis does next. How does transposition speak to how this world relates to the heavenly realm? And you can see the analogy in this, right? Heavenly joy is the symphony. Heavenly joy is the feeling of love. It is the book, the cube, the bread, the solid object, and earthly glory, earthly joy, whatever is good here and beautiful and sweet and noble and honorable, earthly glory and joy is the heavenly joy transposed into a more limited medium, right? A lower medium. Our world is 2D in comparison to the heavenly land, right? Narnia, in the Narnia that the children traversed for all 7 books until the last battle, is a lower medium. It's like the true Narnia, but not as full. And so likewise, the earthly realm is like the heavenly realm as you would 2D to 3D. It means that the goodness, as we know it, is related to the heavenly goodness, but with a dimension missing. So it's not that drink and sex and ambition are too solid for the spiritual man, but the opposite, they are not solid enough. Right? Their true counterparts, the glory and goodness that infuse them, that glory and goodness, what Lewis calls infinite joy, is the fulfillment, the consummation of all that is good and glorious on this side of the resurrection. And so when we idolize, right, the good things of the earth, and it's not that our desires are too strong for them, it's that they're too weak, right? That we're missing out on their actual fulfillment, what they actually point us to. They are too weak, and God has even more in store for us. More solid pleasures. So we get in the habit of thinking about the resurrected state of heaven. We often conceptualize it through negation, right? Through in other words, by taking away. We think of it. We think of heaven by what it is not, right? There's no food there, no drink there. There's no sex there. There's no movement, no mirth, no events, no time, no art, right? We take away. We think of it as what it isn't. But that is the wrong way to go about it, right? Not least because the age to come is one, not of emptiness, but of fullness, right? A plenitude of joy and of love, right? It is a fullness in comparison to ours. And those of you who've read the Space Trilogy, and Don noted on it last week, when Lewis gets out past, is it the moon? Not, Ransom. Right, and it's a richer world out there. It's even more beautiful. It's full of glory, which is the opposite idea that we have in terms of space. Space is emptiness. Heaven is a void. We think of it by negation, but no, Lewis would say it's the opposite of that. So let me read to you from this address. This is found in Transposition. He says, how far the life of the risen man will be sensory, right, in terms of sensuous, we do not know. But I surmise that it will differ from the sensory life we know here, not as emptiness differs from water, or water from wine, but as a flower differs from a bulb, or a cathedral from an architect's drawing. And it is here that transposition helps me. Right? The glories to come are the realization of all the potential that is found in earthly glories, just like a flower and the fruit are the realization of all the potential that is loaded in the bulb. Right? As spring comes about, things sprout out. Well, that's because there's potential in those bulbs that then the flower and eventually the fruit would come out of. Or like a cathedral, right? A cathedral is represented on the blueprints in 2D, but the fulfillment of those blueprints is this gorgeous cathedral that you can walk in and live in and see and behold. And the blueprint is only, two-dimensional rendering of it. It's represented on an incomplete level. And actually, right, Lewis speaks like this, but so does Paul. Right? Paul in 1 Corinthians 15 in particular, when he uses imagery to speak of the resurrection, probably the most common metaphor that he uses is that of a seed in a plant. Right? What is sown in dishonor, what is sown as a seed, rises in glory. And Jesus too, right? The seed must go into the ground if it's going to bear much fruit. It has to go into the ground and die, and then from that, fruit and life are produced. And so also Lewis takes that, and that certainly feeds into how he thinks about transposition. The body is a seed that goes into the dirt and is raised. Its full potential and glory is realized in the resurrection, right? And so also with this world, not just our bodies, but this world itself, right? Because we're not going to be just bodies floating out in space. It is the new heavens and a new earth, right? All things are made new, and that is what Christ is up to. And even just take Christ himself. His resurrected body is not just Lazarus come out of the grave, right? It's not just I'm back, right? I died, but now I'm back. His body, we don't really understand it. It has different principles, different properties than ours. He could go between walls, apparently, right? He could show up with the doors locked and show up in a room and speak with his disciples. He could eat food, but he doesn't need food. So he could do all these different things that really, confound us in terms of what a body can and cannot do. And so even in Jesus' resurrected state, the small glimpses that we are given of it, transcends our dimensions as we understand it. In another place, Lewis describes this present life as a miniature version, a diminution of the world to come. It is a symbol, or as he probably writes with a smile, a vegetarian substitute. Right, so if you're a meat eater, well, look forward to glory. This is just the vegetarian, maybe the vegan substitute. So the point is this, right? You've heard our Lord say that flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of heaven. But the reason why this is the case, it's not because flesh and blood are, as Lewis writes, too solid. It's not because flesh and blood are too solid or too gross or too distinct or too illustrious with being. These are his words. Rather, they are too flimsy, too transitory, too phantasmal. And so you can, again, think of our study in the Great Divorce and reading that, right? That's again, this in his parable, where the spirits that visit from hell are too phantasmal to be able to even walk on the heavenly terrain. They can't even bend a blade of grass. So the kingdom of heaven, flesh and blood cannot inherit it because our bodies must be made more solid, right? Not less. We're not becoming phantoms. We're becoming truly what we were made to be. Now, one last thing before we take up the Narnian scene, and this is related to what we find, what we'll find there. But this concept or phenomena of transposition, Lewis also found helpful in defending the faith against those who would basically naturalize everything. As we think of it, they would call them naturalists in a bad sense. We would think of them as secularists, right? In other words, those who would try to find a minimum simple material cause for every phenomenon found in life. Right? With no need to go to a higher cause, we can explain all of that with simple matter. So for example, right, this would be one objection coming from the naturalist or from the secularist, right? Love isn't anything more than lust, right? And how do I know that? Well, because they both tend to the same bodily response, right? They both result in the same act. And so love and lust, love is just euphemistic for lust. Well, how do you defend against that, right? It's just euphemistic for a chemical reaction. Well, Lewis would say, well, transposition refutes that, right? You wouldn't say piano is nothing more, or the orchestral piece isn't anything different than the piano piece simply because the same notes are played, right? No, there's a richness that's missing there, and so love is not the same thing as lust, even if it results in some of the same acts. And so, that would be a mere secularist flattening down of things and says, no, we reject that higher 3D world. We reject that higher, richer medium just for this lower world. Another objection from the secularists, religion is only the fears and loves of mankind mythologized, right? It's just our fears and our loves writ large, right? What we fear and what we love, we just make gods out of them. And we either worship them or we fear them. Religion just fashions gods to soothe our own anxious heart. The sun gives us warmth and light, and so we take that part of our experience, right, the sun giving us warmth and light, and then we imagine a spiritual sun, right, that is a fountain of life. Right? That's all you're doing. That's all you're doing. You're just taking stuff in this world, and you're creating a fake world. Right? That's the objection that a secularist would make. But notice that these are the opposite of transposition, right? It goes the opposite direction. It takes what is 2D as the fundamental reality and then constructs a reality out of it, right, and a reality above it, which actually doesn't exist, right? Or at least that's the secularist objection to religion or to love. Lewis also makes a wonderful illustration. It'd be like a man who lives on the board, a stick man, right, on the whiteboard, who, we have all his lines and his dots and whatnot, and we say, hey, stick man, that's a cube, that's a box. No, it's not a box, that's just a couple of lines drawn into itself. Like, you're just making up things. No, trust me, I've seen a box, right, and I'm representing a box in your world. It says, no, you're just taking my world and you're making up stuff. It's like, no, because you don't understand, right? You've never seen the box. You never experienced a box, and so of course, right, you couldn't understand what I'm talking about. And so Lewis's concept of transposition is his answer to that sort of secularist allegation, which was especially prominent in his own day, and now it's the air we breathe, right? Whatever Lewis was combating in his day is just the normal in our day. He takes something as normal to us as a 2D drawing, as the bodily sensation of love and terror, as a piano score version of Beethoven's symphony, and he says, right, so you can't deny those things, right, how those things are transposed. You can't deny them without lying to yourself, and so why must it be denied on a larger scale? Why must it be denied on a theological scale? Right? If we understand this, why can't we also understand a natural and spiritual realm? Right? So arguing by analogy. Nobody's going to say that terror and love are the same simply because the feeling in the gut is similar. Nobody's going to say that the piano score of Beethoven is the same as the symphony version simply because the same notes are played. Right? Again, it'd be like a man inhabiting a 2D world arguing that the 3D world cannot exist simply because we borrow lines and dots in space from his world to portray a greater world, a richer world. But just like for the 2D man, at the end of the day, it's the same case for the merely natural man. If you've never known spiritual realities, if you've never tasted spiritual joys, then you cannot judge matters rightly. The 2D man can only have mud pies, right? He cannot imagine what it is like to have a vacation by the sea. And in our day, they don't want to imagine that, right? They are content with those mud pies. And so that is his concept of transposition. That's how he, in particular, levels it against those who would refute religion or the higher things in life by their sort of minimalistic perspective. But now I want to turn to Narnia. Now, I think it's pretty obvious what scene I'm talking about, but Any of you want to hazard a guess, and in particular, children first?
Silver share.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you get, how many knew that? All right. Yep. Yep, exactly. So I'm going to read from that. Did you see my copy over here? First, I'm going to get some water. Uh-huh. I said Voyage of the Dawn Treader is my favorite book, but this is my favorite scene. I love this scene. So some context before I read it, for those of you who aren't familiar with the context. So the kids with Puddleglum are rescuing the prince who's fallen under an enchantment. They've broken the silver chair, setting him free, but then the witch arrives. Right? She arrives, walks to the door, surveys the scene, sees what has happened, and proceeds to start up another enchantment to then deceive them and draw them back. She throws, and they're all in the underground world, right? I can't give too much of the context. You have to go read the book. But they're in the underground world, and they're in this cave, this room. And this witch, she throws green powder into the fire, and this sweet smell just fills the room while she gently plucks the strings of a mandolin. And the kids and the prince and Puddleglum struggle to keep their mind, right? Struggle to keep their idea of what is real. And she sweetly just keeps lulling them back to sleep. Every attempt they try to make to set their minds on the real world, the real Narnia, she undermines, right? Whether they think about the sun or Aslan or the stars, she keeps drawing them away from that. So we'll pick up in the middle of that story because it's the whole chapter really, and I don't want to read a whole chapter. So this is in the middle when Puddleglum struggles to break free from the spell. So it says Puddleglum was still fighting hard. I don't know what rightly you all mean by a world, he said, talking like a man who hasn't enough air. But you can play the fiddle till your fingers drop off, and still you won't make me forget Narnia. And the whole overworld, too. We'll never see it again, I shouldn't wonder. You may have blotted it out and turned it dark like this, for all I know. Nothing more likely. But I know I was there once. I've seen the sky full of stars. I've seen the sun coming out of the sea of a morning and sinking behind the mountains at night. And I've seen him up in the midday sky when I couldn't look at him for brightness. Puddleglum's words had a robust or had a very rousing effect. The other three all breathed again and looked at one another like people newly awaked. Why, there it is, cried the priest. Of course, or cried the prince. Of course. The blessing of Aslan upon this honest marshwiggle. We have all been dreaming these last few minutes. How could we have forgotten it? Of course we've all seen the sun. By Jove, so we have, said Scrub. Good for you, Puddleglum. You're the only one of us with any sense, I do believe. Then came the witch's voice, cooing softly like the voice of a wood pigeon from the high elms of an old garden at 3 o'clock in the middle of a sleepy summer afternoon. And it said, what is this sun that you all speak of? Do you mean anything by the word? Yes, we jolly well do, said Scrub. Can you tell me what it's like? Asked the witch. Thrum, 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 thrum went the strings. Please it your grace, said the prince, very coldly and politely. You see that lamp? It is round and yellow and gives light to the whole room and hangeth, moreover, from the roof. Now that thing which we call the sun is like the lamp, only far greater and brighter. It giveth light to the world or to the whole overworld and hangeth in the sky. Hangeth from what, my lord? Asked the witch. And then, while they were all still thinking how to answer her, she added with another of her soft silver laughs, you see, when you try to think out clearly what this sun must be, you cannot tell me. You can only tell me it is like the lamp. Your sun is a dream, and there is nothing in that dream that was not copied from the lamp. The lamp is the real thing. The sun is but a tale, a children's story. You see, or yes, I see now, said Jill in a heavy, hopeless tone. It must be so. And while she said this, it seemed to her to be very good sense. Slowly and gravely the witch repeated, there is no sun. And they all said nothing. She repeated in a softer and deeper voice, there is no sun. After a pause and after a struggle in their minds, all four of them said together, you are right, there is no sun. It was such a relief to give in and say it. There was never a sun, said the witch. No, there never was a sun, said the prince and the Marshwiggle and the children. For the last few minutes, Jill had been feeling that there was something she must remember at all costs, and now she did. But it was dreadfully hard to say it. She felt as if huge weights were laid on her lips. At last, with an effort that seemed to take all the good out of her, she said, "There's Aslan." "Aslan," said the witch, quickening ever so slightly the pace of her thrumming. "What a pretty name. What does it mean?" "He is the great lion who called us out of our own world," said Scrub, "and sent us in to find Prince Rillian." "What is a lion?" asked the witch. "Oh, hang it all," said Scrub. "Don't you know? How can we describe it to her? Have you ever seen a cat?" "Surely," said the queen. "I love cats." "Well, a lion is a little bit, only a little bit, mind you, like a huge cat, with a mane. At least it's not like a horse's mane, you know. It's more like a judge's wig, and it's yellow, and terrifically strong." And the witch shook her head. "I see," she said, that we should do no better with your lion, as you call it, than we did with your sun. You have seen lamps, and so you imagined a bigger and better lamp and call it the sun. You've seen cats, and now you want a bigger and better cat, and it's to be called a lion. Well, 'tis a pretty make-believe, though, to say truth, it would suit you all better if you were younger. And look how you can put nothing into your make-believe without copying it from the real world, this world of mine, which is the only world. But even you children are too old for such play. As for you, my lord prince, that art a man full grown, fie upon you. Are you not ashamed of such toys? Come, all of you, put away these childish tricks. I have worked for you all in the real world. There is no Narnia, no overworld, no sky, no sun, no Aslan, and now to bed all. And let us begin a wiser life tomorrow, but first to bed, to sleep, deep sleep, soft pillows, sleep without foolish dreams." The prince and the two children were standing with their heads hung down, their cheeks flushed, their eyes half closed, the strength all gone from them, the enchantment almost complete. But Puddleglum, desperately gathering all his strength, walked over to the fire. Then he did a very brave thing. He knew it wouldn't hurt him quite as much as it would hurt a human, for his feet, which were bare, were webbed and hard and cold-blooded like a duck's. But he knew it would hurt him badly enough, and so he did it. With his bare foot, he stamped on the fire, grinding a large part of it into ashes on the flat hearth. And three things happened at once. First, the sweet, heavy smell grew very much less, for though the whole fire had not been put out, a good bit of it had, and what remained smelled largely of burnt marshwiggle, which is not at all an enchanting smell. This instantly made everyone's brain far clearer. The prince and the children held up their heads again and opened their eyes. Secondly, the witch, in a loud, terrible voice, utterly different from all the sweet tones she had been using up till now, called out, "What are you doing? Dare to touch my fire again, mud filth, and I'll turn your blood to fire inside your veins." Thirdly, the pain itself from Puddleglum's head, for a moment perfectly clear, and he knew exactly what he really thought. There is nothing like a good shock of pain for dissolving certain kinds of magic. "One word, ma'am," he said, coming back from the fire limping because of the pain. "One word. All you've been saying is quite right. I shouldn't wonder. I'm a chap who always liked to know the worst and then put the best face I can on it. So I won't deny any of what you said, but there's one thing more to be said, even so. Suppose we have only dreamed or made up all those things, trees and grass and sun and moon and stars and Aslan himself. Suppose we have. Then all I can say is that in that case, the made-up things seem a good deal more important than the real ones. Suppose this black pit of a kingdom of yours is the only world. Well, it strikes me as a pretty poor one, and that's a funny thing when you come to think of it. We're just babies playing or making up a game, if you're right. But 4 babies playing a game can make a play world which licks your real world to hollow. That's why I'm going to stand by the play world. I'm on Aslan's side, even if there isn't any Aslan to lead it. I'm going to live as like a Narnian as I can, even if there isn't any Narnia. So thanking you kindly for our supper, if these 2 gentlemen and the young lady are ready, we're leaving your court at once and setting out in the dark to spend our lives looking for Overland. Not that our lives will be very long, I should think, but that's small loss if the world's as dull a place as you say." "Oh, hurrah! Good old Puddleglum," cried Scrub and Jill. But the prince shouted suddenly, "Where? Look the witch." Woo! What happens next? What's yeah.
She turns into a snake.
Uh-huh. Yep. Yeah, she's a giant snake. So how does that scene relate to transposition? It's pretty obvious, right? All the same lies and deceits. He's working all those secular subjections into the mouth of the witch. You're just taking everything that's in my world, right, and making it bigger, right, making it more glorious, and yeah, it's very good.